Hello and welcome to the Fit News Podcast. I am your host, Jen Shaver, and joining me today is Tecca Thompson, a self-care facilitator, storyteller, community builder. Tecca is a trauma-informed space holder specializing in creating safe and transformative spaces. Tecca uses circle, somatics, storytelling, and breathwork. She builds communities and fosters healing through shared breath and the power of narrative. Her work is dedicated to guiding individuals in their healing journeys, promoting connection, and facilitating personal growth and resilience in circle spaces. Tecca, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you for having me.
You do some exciting work, and I think we should start so that way our listeners kind of understand not only what it is you do, but let's first start with your story in particular. So just some background on you and your story.
Sure. Well, actually, I just retired. I've been a public servant for 33 years.
Congratulations.
Close to 33 years. And when I was in that space, I worked in juvenile corrections. I was a social worker. I became a youth advocate within that arena. And then the last 7 years of my time there, I was managing an adolescent sexual health grant. It was a federally funded statewide initiative where we were working with agencies to help kids make proud choices and better choices around their sexual health. And then I retired because I felt like it was finally time for me to step out and do some of this work that you were introducing. And so where that journey started was during the pandemic. It started with me having an experience around the Ahmaud Arbery incident.
Oh, yes. In Georgia,
yes.
Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you don't know, what happened was there was a videotape that surfaced of a young man, Ahmaud Arbery, who was a Black man,
Right.
and he was jogging and ended up being chased down. And then this is a little bit of a content warning. He was murdered. And it did something to me on a level where I couldn't function. And the reason why is because I had a son at the time who was the same age as Ahmaud Arbery, and we were in the lockdown, and my son he works out, an avid weightlifter, runner, and because all the gyms were closed, he was running every day, and living in a rural community away from me. And so that incident just shook me to the core and dysregulated me in a way where I really was frozen in fear. I've never watched the video. I just knew what was happening and I read about it. I just don't believe in watching acts of violence on social media because it desensitizes people to the injustices. It just makes us kind of think like, oh, well, it's just another one. But anyway, so then I started to, I joined an online listening community called Sidewalk Talk, and they were doing some work around racial justice and racial healing. And through that experience, I learned the power of listening and interactive storytelling. Just a little bit prior to the pandemic, I had started getting this call to do women's circles. Now that to me was dropped in my spirit out of the blue. I did not know where that came from. But also right at that time, I started really wanting to tell stories as well. And then we all went into shutdown. I had that experience and I wanted to learn more about deep listening, storytelling. And so that's just kind of how my journey took off. I went to a somatic storytelling program. That's how I learned about somatics. It was an amazing experience. It was from page to stage, but we learned how your story gets locked in your body through traumatic experiences. It's a phenomenon called armoring, and we have these bands in our body where stories and emotions and tension get locked, and one of them is your throat. And so I went through this program, but the problem was it wasn't very trauma informed, and I actually experienced a lot of trauma being the only Black woman in the cohort of about 20 women.
Oh.
So when that was over, then I was like, oh, I'm going to put story, somatics, breath work together and do my own thing. So here we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, your work as a trauma-informed space holder it really is quite fascinating and interesting. Maybe you could share a little bit about how the integration of the circle, the somatics, and the storytelling and the breath work kind of fosters not only individual healing, but also strengthens those community bonds as well.
Yeah. So that's a great lead in or question. And thank you for asking it. So for me, I wanted to master storytelling. Like, storytelling is actually in my lineage. My grandfather was a storyteller, but again, I had this trauma where it was locked inside of my body. So I started, studying all of these different modalities to story, and I got an opportunity to coach 5 storytellers in an event called Permission to Heal. And when I was coaching them and they were telling their stories around gun violence and loss to gun violence, every single storyteller held their breath. And so I was like, wow, that's interesting, intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
So I became compelled to become a breath coach because I wanted to help storytellers kind of breathe through that. But what happened is that I began to notice that breath and story have a way of breaking down barriers between people that no diversity, equity, and inclusion class, like it just cuts straight to the soul when you share a story, and we all share breath together. It unifies us in a very embodied way. And so then I was like, well, how can I put all of this stuff together? And so I discovered Circle, which I've been circling for a long time, but then also really dropped down into like the learnings around Circle, the lineage of Circle, and combine Circle breath work all together to invite people in for an experience where we do a lot of breathing to connect ourselves back to our bodies. We do interactive storytelling because it regulates the nervous system, and also because it's just a way to connect very deeply, very quickly. And we do that all in the context of Circle, which is just a very powerful experience in and of itself. And so that's just kind of how I do it. I invite people in a way that when we sit in Circle together, using those modalities, we are building community in that moment through the shared narratives and the shared breath.
And now this might be a silly question, but there might be listeners that maybe are not familiar with what it means to quote unquote circle, right? Or be in a circle.
Yeah.
Maybe just kind of go into that just a little bit, just to kind of give them, what does that mean? Because they might think it's one thing, but really it's something else.
Yeah, so that's another great question because I do get asked that a lot. And circle can mean a lot of different things for different people. For me, the intentions behind the circles that I hold are breathing and connection. So when you sit in circle with me, you will come into an experience, and we do drop down into circle ritual because we use a talking piece because it amplifies voices and it makes everyone in the circle equal. Every voice matters. And I use a centerpiece in the middle just because it brings the focus into the center and it holds the energy of the circle. And that's it. We start with a bell, a poem, and we use a talking piece. And for me, we do rounds of breathing, we do rounds of connection, and then we do rounds of reflection. And it's just a very powerful experience. And I'm really glad you asked that question, because I always encourage people, whenever you see circle this or circle that, that you ask the facilitator, like, what is the intention of your circle, right? And if they're not really able to tell you what the intention of their circle is, then, you know, like, I feel like it should be clear so that people aren't walking into something that they're not expecting, because some circles can be very spiritual in nature, you know, and have a lot of different components that people might not be comfortable with. So I always like to make the intentions very clear.
Yeah.
Because of what you said, a lot of people don't know what that means, and they have circles are always about breath and connection and healing.
Yeah, yeah. So building communities centered around the healing and the growth is pretty much the cornerstone of your work.
Yeah, well, you know, I do a lot of work, but I do consider myself to be a community builder in any space that I go in. I feel responsible that we build a community together around where we're going. Community allows people to know, hey, you're not alone, right? You are not alone. And so it's not just a workshop where you come to get a great experience. We are circling together and looking at our shared humanity when we sit in group. And the best way to do it is community.
Yeah. Now, have you run into any challenges? I mean, have you faced any challenges in trying to do this and in this, you know, endeavor? And what, you know, how did you navigate those?
Well, I think some of the challenges were like really my own capacity, right? Because I was working full time, and just being able to kind of put information out about who I am and what I'm doing, it was kind of limited. But I want to say that I've had a great, even in that limited capacity, people have experienced my circles and shared their experience. So a lot of really great word of mouth has happened for me. So it's been good. So the challenge that I had, I would say, is just the capacity to market or, you know, put my stuff out there. But I'm looking forward to this time now where I can be very intentional about how I am presenting the information and sharing what it is that I do. But I stay very busy because I do circle, but I also do a lot of facilitation around story and circle somatics, nervous system regulation, in addition to bringing women and men into a space where they can heal. I do the same work for community-based organizations. So I go into their organization and bring them into a space of community and collective healing. Whereas sometimes a lot of organizations are, this is where I work, but they don't see themselves as a community of support for one another inside of their agency. So I do that work as well.
That's really interesting. And that can really help to build, you know, team camaraderie as a you know, as a company, right? So if you feel like your company maybe, you know, is struggling to connect with each other.
So I've done a lot. I've done it in two different ways. I've done a storytelling circle series with a group of activists through Trauma Informed Oregon, where we just sat and did story circles for 5 weeks, just to give them an opportunity to come in and breathe and tell some stories, lighten up like their work, connect together with like really compelling stories so that they can refuel to go back out in the community, because they were doing, well, they were organizing around climate control, land back, and also some fires that were happening out there. So they were like quite busy.
Yeah.
And organizers, activists, they never want to slow down and, you know, take their self-care. So we use story as a way of connection and self-care for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know that breath work is also another core element in your practice. And I know that we kind of touched on how it can be used to regulate the nervous system. Why don't we talk just a little bit more about that and maybe give the listeners, you know, how are those two connected? And maybe if there's something that they can do at home to, you know, maybe begin to start this practice at home before looking into furthering it outside, you know, with a professional like yourself.
Yes. So on a real kind of very simple way to explain that our breath is an anchor that we can use to regulate our parasympathetic nervous system. And parasympathetic nervous system is the one that says slow down. Our sympathetic nervous system is the one that we use when we fight or flight, which is not a bad thing. We need to have both.
Right.
However, because of the way we live today, we are often stuck in fight or flight, or just right there where anything can send us up into fight or flight. And so parasympathetic nervous system is where we feel more calm and relaxed. And we're able to connect with our own body and with other people. And so simple breath work has the ability to, one, help us build capacity where when we go up into fight or flight, we can come back down quickly. When we use techniques like breath work, often we can come back down. But it also has the ability to bring us back down when we need like some emergency breath. Or like, whoa, you know, let me calm down a little bit. And so, yeah, so what I like to always share with people on the fly, or a practical tool that they can take with them, it's called the 3-minute breathing space. And if we have a little bit of time, we
Let's
can
do it.
Go through the 3-minute breathing
because
space.
I feel like everybody has 3 minutes within their day. So if we can share how to do this and they can start here, right? Like, especially if you're somebody that doesn't know where to start. Listen, I want to do this, but I don't know where to start. And it just sounds so confusing. Let's get into it, Tecca.
Okay, so first, I'm going to cue everyone into when we're actually going to start the 3-minute breathing space.
Okay.
But let's just find a comfortable seated position together. So what that may look like for you is that you begin to notice your feet on the ground. Just notice that, and then bringing your attention up to your legs and to your sits bones, just noticing that you are being held and you're supported by your chair. Exercise today, we're just going to kind of take a comfortable seated position where we're going to kind of sit upright softly and kind of lift our chin just a little bit, but let it be soft and comfortable. Okay, and then together we'll take 3 deep collective breaths together. And what that's going to look like is an inhale through the nose with a gentle hold at the top, and then we'll exhale through the mouth. So let's do that together right now. Go ahead and inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Really good. One more breath in through the nose. Hold and exhale. Last big, beautiful breath. Hold and exhale. And at the bottom of that exhale, I'm going to invite you to either close your eyes or lower your gaze by looking off to the side. And now we'll start our 3-minute breathing space. So in the beginning, I'm going to invite you to bring your attention inward, just paying attention to any sensation that may be coming available or up for you in your body. What are you noticing in your body? What sensations are arising? Perhaps you might find a place where you're feeling some tension. Maybe your shoulders might be tight. Maybe feeling a slight bit of anxiety, or nervousness. We're just going to put our attention there and just notice. You might notice that you feel cold or hot. Sensations are arising. If you don't feel anything, then that's okay too, because numbness is also a sensation. Take another deep breath in and out here. So go ahead, in and the bottom of that breath, we'll begin to shift our attention to breath awareness. And so here we're just going to be noticing the natural rhythm of our own breath. Special, nothing spectacular, just breath moving in and out. Seeing that on the inhale, the breath is slightly cool, warm. Shoulders slightly raised up, and our chest opens, and our belly slightly fills. On the exhale, belly drops, chest comes in, shoulders release. So for the last few seconds, just notice that. Shoulders rising, chest open, belly filling, belly releasing, chest close, shoulders drop, just noticing. And then we'll take another big deep breath in and out. Breath, we will begin to shift our attention to the sounds that we hear in the room. Notice what sounds are your ears picking up right now. Play around. Are the sounds different in your right ear than they are in the left ear? Now shift your attention to just outside of your room. Notice what you can hear out there, perhaps a TV or dishwasher. What are you noticing? Finally, we'll take our attention and see if we can hear things outside of our house. What sounds can you hear outside? And if it's impossible to hear anything, maybe imagine what you could hear. The sound of cars going by. And then we'll take another deep breath in and out. And on the bottom of that breath, begin to wiggle your fingers and toes and perhaps let your eyes flutter open. And then just for a moment, I want you to look around your room and notice what you see. Perhaps the room might seem brighter to you. Maybe colors are brighter. That's also a sign that you've shifted into that state of calm and collective because we're able to see more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was wonderful, Tecca. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So is there anything that we may have missed in our chat that you want listeners to know about?
Well, no, I think that's a good place because I am doing so much right now. We don't want to overwhelm people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't
Enough
want to.
overwhelm, right?
I don't want to be the cause of folks being overwhelmed right now. But just know that we didn't have to go anywhere. We didn't have to go to the gym. We didn't have to go to a yoga class.
Mhm.
You didn't even have to come to Circle, even though I want you to come to Circle, right?
Right.
But your breath is 100% accessible to you in any moment.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so powerful, is that you can lock into it. And I am here to help anyone that wants to learn more techniques on how they can calm anxiety and find ways to sleep better and help with digestion through breath work specifically. And I think I'm going to be able to drop some links where you can find me in Circle, which I do monthly, 2 monthly circles.
Okay.
I'm offering some individual breath sessions now that my schedule is opened up. So
yeah, wonderful. And I think that was a very powerful sentence, what you said, that your breath is always available to you, right? And it doesn't require special equipment. It doesn't require extra money, right? So we don't have to, if we're on a budget, right? It's there for us. And if we use that tool correctly, we will improve our overall health.
it's a practice. And so the more you use it, the more regulated you'll become.
Yeah. And the better you will feel,
When you have an anxiety, episode, it won't feel as intense.
Right.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Powerful tool that we should all learn how to use. All right, Tecca. Where can people find more information on you?
So I have my business page on Facebook, which is just Sacred Healing Spaces.
Okay.
It has an S at the end. And then you can also follow me on Instagram, which is at Sacred Healing Spaces with an underscore. And then I also have a kind of like a bio link through Yoga Body, which has all of my upcoming events, ways that you can book breath sessions with me as well.
Okay.
And so we'll make all of those things available for people.
Yep, those will all be in the show notes. So if people want to learn more about you and all the good that you are doing, they can just click on one of those links. So Tecca, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you for having me. Really, I appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you for listening to the Fit News Podcast, and we will catch you next time.